you have a strong sample size of what Greg Berhalter has done since he's been in charge. He's had a 4-year cycle, and now coming into this next cycle, yes, you think of him going through World Cup qualifying and getting out of the group of the World Cup, but this is a new cycle. And in terms of a new cycle, you need to see improvement. And we're talking about an objective in Copa America, which is the only tournament you have before a World Cup of consequence that you can get tested, and they failed miserably. From that standpoint, you look at the job, you look up the mission and the objective, and you didn't even meet the criteria of just getting out of the group. So for me, that's cause for moving in a new direction.
So there's really no scenario where you think that they would keep him?
I don't see a realistic scenario in which he stays as the coach until the World Cup. For me, there's not a way to justify him staying in that position.
And how come U.S. Soccer is taking so long to take this decision?
And this is another thing for me. U.S. Soccer's not going to come out and say, we're going to give you a decision on his future next week if they're going to keep him.
Yeah.
Because you don't need to he's got a contract, he's in his job, you don't have to come out and say, well, we've come to the consensus that we're going to keep him. When this is the first time in my lifetime where it's been a unanimous feeling that the head coach needs to go
across the board
in a new direction.
Across the board.
They need to find, and this is former players, this is fans,
the media,
this is media,
everyone.
There's a real strong sense that the U.S. national team needs to go in a different direction, a new look, a new perspective, new ideas, because it's not that we lost and we didn't qualify out of the group, which is a major thing. It's the way the team played. We didn't see any creative style of attacking. We didn't see different ideas and different looks and formations, and we could have seen that before Copa America in the friendlies. So it's a strange position that we're in, but I think on the flip side, a new manager would I think bring some new life into
Charlie, do you think, sorry, Tony, I see you're about to ask something, but real quick, with Canada advancing and Jesse Marsch, do you think that now has put more pressure on him? If maybe Canada had crashed out of the group stage, like maybe it would have been a little bit different, but do you think now U.S. Soccer has a little bit more pressure now that Jesse Marsch and Canada have advanced?
No, I don't think that puts any extra pressure on Greg Berhalter or U.S. Soccer, because the U.S. men's national team, regardless, had to do their job. And Canada had a different path, and Jesse Marsch went a different way. And I think from what we expect of this group and this team, given the teams that they played, it was well below the certain expectations.
Don't you think, though, the optics, I get what you're saying about the Canada and Jesse Marsch doing well and advancing, but just from a supporter standpoint, the optics aren't good. The optics don't look good.
It makes it look bad, but hold up.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It makes it look bad for sure. I agree with you. The U.S. was talking to Jesse in reports that said that they wanted to hire him before Greg, and then came Greg. Yeah, of course. And then the other manager goes on, Jesse goes on to have a great Copa America while Greg does it. But just take what the U.S. did by itself. If Canada didn't exist in this Copa America and the U.S. crashed out of group stage.
That's what I just said.
Right. It makes it look a lot worse. And I think, yeah, sure, that.
But you can't judge it on that.
You can't judge it.
Absolutely. You got to judge it for what it is. Of course, you got to judge it for what it is.
But it doesn't help their case.
No, it doesn't from a media standpoint, no doubt about it. But to your point about what's taking so long, look, whatever the decision is, whether they decide to keep Greg, which if they decide to keep him, they're going to have to do some spin doctoring, right, on this thing. So it's going to.
What spin doctoring could you possibly do?
Yeah, that's the point.
But
that's why it takes a while. And the other thing,
not to this extent.
But Charlie, I tend to believe, and we were talking about this earlier, I tend to believe that Greg Berhalter's not going to be the coach after this whole thing. So they're going to let him down easy, right? They're not going to embarrass the guy. The guy's been in the program. He's been your national team manager. He took you out of the first group.
He doesn't need to be embarrassed.
Right, and that's what they're going to do.
Why would he be embarrassed?
Right.
Whatever they're going to do, it's not going to be like Ecuador where you now the next day you're fired. It's just not how U.S. Soccer runs. And I think that's probably what's taking so long here to make a decision. I tend to think that the decision is already made. They had a meeting in New York last Friday. I think at that point, they walked out of that room. Whatever the decision is, they've said, okay, this is the route we're going. Now, they'll have some other things to do one way or the other, but to Charlie's point right from the start, for me, the team hasn't gotten better since 2022 December after they got knocked out. And that, for me, forget Canada, forget Argentina or anything else that's happening in the World Cup. That's all I care about. It's the U.S. men's national team, and they haven't gotten to the point we want them to be.
And I totally agree. You can't crucify Berhalter. He's going to be a manager that's still going to be working in our soccer ecosystem that we're going to be talking about maybe next year or the year after that. Maybe he's coaching Major League Soccer. He's an important person in our soccer ecosystem. And it's how do you write the press release? How do you let him down softly? If that's the direction we're going to, I understand the time that they're taking to.
Do you see them keeping him?
No, I don't.
Do you see them keeping him?
I can see a world in which they do keep him.
But for non-soccer reasons. For non-soccer reasons.
But what are those reasons? What are non-soccer reasons?
They've given him this contract, so they're going to have to pay him anyway. And it just I also see, we talked about it last week, Matt Crocker, who is relatively new to this role. This was his first big hire, was bringing GREGG back into the fold. And if that doesn't work, perhaps he sees that exactly.
You got to be bigger than that.
I know. I'm not.
But
I
don't
agree.
dismiss what
I agree.
Susanna's saying here. She's absolutely right, because guys who make decisions, they have big egos, right? And that's the reality. They don't want to look like they made mistakes.
Right.
So don't dismiss what she's saying right now, because
so I don't want it to happen.
part.
I'm hopeful that it won't, because I do think it's time for a change. But I can see a scenario. I can see a world in which he does stay on, and U.S. Soccer makes that decision to keep him on.
For me, when they go in a direction to say, the players love this coach, they play hard for this coach, great. But what are the results? I don't care if the players love GREGG, and that's great that you have a team that comes together and they believe in the head coach and they work their butt off. When down a man, they fought to the end, but they didn't get the result.
Can you? I'm not even gonna go as far as the results. Before the results are the manner in which you play. This team lacked an identity, hardcore. What is the U.S.? What did the U.S. play? How did they look like?
So in that case,
even like results, like I don't care. Like if you lose trying, if you lose looking good, okay, fine. There's enough there for you to convince U.S. Soccer, hey, it's trending in the right direction. What is the U.S. men's national team? I don't think you can say what they are.
But in regards to that, you can look across the globe and ask the same questions to Brazil, ask the same questions to France now.
Absolutely, I think you can.
So you could say,
but they're in the semifinals of a Euro.
And then you look at
least
Canada,
they have results to
and then
vouch.
look at Canada. What identity would you say Canada has at the moment?
But the thing is, at least they have results to vouch. They're in the semifinals of a Copa America.
I know. The results part.
Yeah.
Is what
we don't have an identity, nor the results.
Yeah.
Yikes. Man, it's going to be a fun show. Whenever the news does come out, we're going to have a hell of a time dissecting it.